My thoughts on this presentation. Every system begins with a purpose, and every story begins with a question. What are we really trying to achieve? And more importantly, where do you fit into this story? Because this is not just their journey, it's yours. See if you can track the story and where you can relate. Will you be a hero, sage, or nemesis? The only question is, what role will you play?
How do we change the behaviors after training? How do we get the employees to integrate their learning in the workplace?
The council gathered. We are investing more in training than ever before. Our people are engaged, they enjoy it, they complete it. A task team called C-Suite was formed. Their mission? Simple. Make this one succeed. But the pattern was already familiar. 1. Launch the new technology. 2. Pull people out of work for training. 3. Watch engagement rise. And then 4. Watch adoption disappear. Training had become genuinely engaging, with gamification, points, badges, leaderboards. But the new way of work covered in training very seldom left the training venue, and the world continued to stagnate. Every time they returned, fatigue, disillusion, rising from the hidden lands where real work actually happens.
Here we go again! Another initiative, another promise, another failure waiting to happen. What can we do? What are we going to fail at this time?
But this time something was different. Deep within the hidden lands where real work actually happened, something unexpected was found. Not a new technology, not another training program, but a system.
It was called Adapt.
This was no longer about training. It was about transformation. The mission? Find the hero in every individual. Help them adapt not as learners, but as players in a system that never ends. Get the 5 cities to work together. Adapt or fall behind.
But transformation never comes freely. There was a condition. The patriarch of City Assess made it clear. You will not succeed alone. My project and yours must merge, success in both or none at all.
Systems had to come together.
Learning with work, success would not be measured in completion, but in change. At first it was difficult. 2 projects, 5 previous failures, and a new nemesis murmured in the trenches. No time. Was no time already working alongside fatigue and disillusion? Because if change cannot be seen in the workplace, it does not exist. How would they integrate the competing systems, shift a culture of defeat into one of safety, without causing fear? So they began where most fail, by defining what success actually looks like. Not activity, not attendance, but measurable behavior. And then, they found what they had been missing all along. Not a system, not a tool. Adoption mentors.
The human element we overlooked.
Taking the risk, the project lead reached out, and the mentor willingly joined the team. Because transformation does not happen in isolation. It happens in context.
None of the C-suite team had realized the impact that someone who truly understood the reality of work could have.
Of course.
That changes everything.
Together, with the tech lead, the finance manager, and the mentor, the team defined success with precision. Clear, measurable, real.
Not just goals, but behaviors that could be observed, tracked, and improved. Specific, measurable, achievable, real sit, time-bound.
Using the power of MBOs, they crafted the next step. Now the journey into City Diagnose could begin. The project lead took charge, working with the tech expert and the mentor, accessing the archives, the project tool rooms, and building a full inventory of what skills were really present in the workplace.
They were determined to understand how bad, or how good, it really was out there.
Old tools that worked were kept, tools that didn't were adapted. Brand new tools were created with the makers of City Diagnose. Every tool, every system, every signal was used to reveal the truth.
Calling in the gamification expert, they mapped out the pathway every employee had to take and planned the player journey with purpose. The quest was defined. The behaviors were clear. Behavior loops, CTAs, feedback mechanics, intrinsic motivators all woven together. Building on the leading frameworks of game design like the Purposeful Play Portal and behavioral science, they began integrating the two projects. This is where everything changed. Gamification was no longer about training. It became the system itself.
And then came the real test.
Show me the value.
Finance drilled down into cost reduction, strategy alignment, and funding.
Each tool, reused, upgraded, or created, was costed per employee. A new workplace currency was introduced, micro-competencies, measurable outputs, and embedded culture.
Because without investment, there is no belief. And without belief, there is no change. So behavior became measurable, and value became visible.
The system was introduced into the workplace. Before training was needed, the gamification strategy started engaging the employees to use the diagnostic tools. Earning, trading, and capturing applied skills in real time increased adoption rates from 2%, 5%, 15%. Not dramatic, but real. And for the first time, it was being captured and tracked. But resistance never disappears. It adapts. Disillusion had found its way to a key stakeholder, planting doubt that the project favored one team over another. Suspicion grew. A hidden meeting was called. Trust began to fracture, and new alliances formed, threatening everything. At first, it looked familiar. 10%, 15%, the same numbers they had always seen. Fatigue smiled. Disillusion nodded.
Nothing has changed. The numbers are the same.
Wait. For the first time the system could see. Let's explore.
With only 10 to 15% of employees onboarded, C-Suite had to move quickly. A new trend was beginning to emerge. Aeon, a new AI ally, was unleashed on the data. Her job? Crunch the numbers, find the patterns, present unbiased findings. Smart at data? Aeon relies on human judgment for people. Aeon began combining data from individual employees, teams, departments, and business units. Seeing what rewards, currency, and actions were happening, and where. For the first time, they could see. Not completion, not participation, behavior, patterns, reality. The truth became clear. Aeon provided individual gaps, what the currency was being traded for, how much, and where. The mentor helped bring meaning to the patterns and life to the data. Not everyone had a skills gap, and all gaps were different. The project lead and the tech expert saw the reality of competencies and productivity, and who was crossing into the need for development.
The vital meeting with City Plan Pivot Mayor, Training Director.
Knowing the city was already under pressure from no time and fatigue, the team arrived with results, measures, and the gamification and engagement strategy already rolling out. Now it is time to respond, not with generic programs, but with targeted interventions for the individual first, to close the real gaps.
Real work needs, for real people. And where possible, we need to link these to our current design programs from the training content library. Deconstruct this program into 5 micro-learning programs, coaching sessions and plans, and aligned mentorship plans. Use the results to identify the top collaborators to become peer coaches themselves, and build a program to teach them how to coach. Extend the gamification strategy into training and coaching. Combine engagement bridges learning and behavior change. Context, not classrooms. Yes!
Aon noticed strange results from the data, providing these to the tech and project lead, showing more about fatigue and disillusionment. They took a brave step, calling a surprise meeting between the mentor, fatigue, and disillusion, who turned out to be old friends, reunited. They had known each other for years and had deep respect for each other. Sharing a deep understanding for each other and the business, they found their way to an agreement where fatigue and disillusion would only engage with employees who were prioritizing the currency over the work itself. They were no longer enemies. They became signals, restoring balance to the system. And then, something shifted. The early adopters received feedback through nudges, engagement, and growing momentum. People started connecting across departments and business units. Classroom training, on-job coaching, mentorship, all happening at once. Results were pouring in, data was gathering, change was spreading. The system was no longer imposed, it was lived.
C-suite returned to the council to report on the progress.
Show us the results.
It feels like you have wasted our time. We cannot see any difference again.
But this time C-suite could respond, not with stories, not with opinions, but with evidence.
Training hours decreased by 30%, while on-job training increased by 42%. Mentorship increased by 17%. Workplace waste decreased by 20%. Productivity increased by 14%.
The air had begun to clear. Adoption moved from 15% to 48% of employees on the journey. Of the 5 previous failed projects, 2 were shelved, 3 were incorporated into this new way of work. Not because training improved, because behavior changed.
Adapt was not a tool. It was the bridge between learning and performance.
New pathways were being built. Player journeys were being updated in real time as results fed back to Aon and the team. The system had evolved. ADAPT had become an integration of behavior outputs, engagement, feedback, and fun, all connected and continuously improving. And for the first time, they were finally gaining ground. Gamification was never meant to live only inside the classroom. When it stays there, it creates engagement without change.
Adapt is not a layer. It is the bridge between learning and performance.
Because behavior is never finished. The question is no longer, how do we make training engaging? The question is, how do we make change inevitable? When it becomes part of the system, when it shapes behavior, measures action, and evolves with reality, that's when transformation begins.
So where does the journey end? It doesn't.